Welcome back to Flat Hats at Home, bringing a little bit of Redwood National and State Parks to you and your home. Today I have the pleasure of bringing you two national parks to give you all of the dirt on their big, their record-breaking, and their bark is really, really red, giant sequoias and coastal redwoods. We're going to be video chatting with Ranger Laura from over at Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. Let's get started.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Ranger Laura. I am an education ranger here at Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, and I am currently teleworking from home. Giant sequoias are the largest trees in the entire world by volume, meaning that they have the most mass. And how they measure that, they take the volume of the trunk of the tree, and they measure that by cubic feet, so 1 cubic foot by 1 cubic foot. So thinking about the General Sherman tree, the largest sequoia, and they have calculated it's about 52,500 cubic feet. And kind of a little bit easier way to think about that is imagining that 1 cubic foot is about the size of a basketball. So the trunk of the Sherman tree could be estimated about 52,500 basketballs. So they're big, they're old, and they're pretty rare. So that's some of the features that make them pretty special.
Coast redwoods, in comparison, are the largest tree in the world by height instead of volume. Redwood National and State Parks actually has the tallest tree in the entire world located within our park boundaries. This tree reaches the amazing height of over 380 feet, give or take. So when you look at these trees, the giant sequoia and the coast redwood from a distance, it might be hard to tell them apart. But there are certain characteristics that you can look for if you're trying to figure out if you're looking at a coast redwood or a giant sequoia.
So thinking about a giant sequoia tree, a couple of their characteristics are, of course, that coloring of the bark. I think that's one of the first things that stands out of giant sequoia trees is their coloring. So they do have kind of a reddish cinnamon coloring in their bark, and also a pretty fibrous look to them. Of course, the size of the tree, but for smaller giant sequoias that don't have that reddish coloring yet, a couple of the features you can look for are the needles. So they have pretty small, thin needles. Also looking at their cones, for example, like looking along the kind of the ground covering, you can look for giant sequoia cones. So right here, this is the size of a giant sequoia cone. It's about the size of an egg. But when the cones are on the tree, they do have a pretty vibrant green coloring of fiber. Yeah, so those are just a few of the characteristics that you can kind of see or tell as a giant sequoia. What are some characteristics of coastal redwoods?
So some of the characteristics that you can look for if you are trying to identify a coast redwood tree is first off that bark, just like the giant sequoias. They're going to have really, really red bark, but it's going to be more of like a chocolatey maroon, reddish brown instead of that bright cinnamon color of the giant sequoias. So look for that first. It's also going to be pretty fibrous and kind of look ropey. So it'll look like ropes are kind of running up and down the tree. You can also take a look at the needles, especially in some of our younger trees that are closer to the ground. Those needles of the coast redwood are going to be pretty broad. They're going to want to soak up all that fog. Just like Ranger Laura said, you're also going to be wanting to look at those cones. So comparing those two cones, I have the giant sequoia cone over here, and I also have that coast redwood. If you were here for our first video, you know that these cones are only about the size of an olive. They're super small, and you usually can find them on the ground all over the redwood forest. Another way to tell if you're looking at a giant sequoia or a coast redwood is just by knowing where you are, and hopefully you do. These trees are not naturally found together. Sometimes they are planted together, so just be aware of that, especially if you're in a city or at a zoo or an arboretum. You might find these together, but Ranger Laura, where would you normally find a giant sequoia?
So giant sequoia trees, they're found in the Sierra Nevada mountain range here in California, and they're actually only found on the western slope of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. And sequoia trees, they grow in pockets that we call groves. So they grow in kind of these groves, pockets all along the western slope, kind of from the southern Sierras all the way up through the northern Sierras. And they like to grow at an elevation between 4,000 and 8,000 feet. And yeah, they grow in these groves all throughout the Sierra Nevadas. And we have about 40 groves here in Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks.
Coast redwoods are only found on the north coast of California. Their natural range includes about 450 miles, all the way from southern Oregon down to about the Monterey area. And they really love that coastal air, so you'll find them within about 50 miles of the coast. Unfortunately, we only have about 3% left of our original redwoods due to logging in the 1900s and early 2000s. But you still can find redwoods, maybe just not those really, really big, picturesque trees all along their natural range. Remember, these trees are not naturally found together. Well, thank you, Ranger Laura, for joining us. This is such an honor to be able to talk to somebody from Sequoia and Kings Canyon. This is so fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was really, really awesome to talk to you all and kind of chat about coastal redwoods and giant sequoias.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Ranger Laura, for giving us all of the fun deets about giant sequoias. If you want to learn more, folks, I would highly suggest checking out the website for Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, which can be found at nps.gov/SEKI, or SEKI, as we like to say in the Park Service. Come back next week and we're going to be talking to Ranger Brad about a very hot topic. We're going to be talking about wildfire. So come back and that'll be a super interesting episode next week. Thank you for watching this week's edition of Flat Hats at Home, bringing a little bit of Redwood National and State Parks and Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park to you and your home. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like or maybe even give us a share. Redwood National and State Parks is committed to bringing as much of our park to your home as we can during this unprecedented time. So please stay healthy and stay safe.